Today I'm making one of my favorites, jalapeno cheddar sourdough. Super easy. We're going to start with 125 grams of sourdough starter that's at its peak, which I fed it yesterday. It should be all bubbly and nice and jiggly. I'm going to use a scale to measure this 125 grams out. I like to put my spoon in the bowl so it includes the weight of the spoon. So I don't have to figure out exactly how much stuff is on the spoon. Then I'm going to zero it back out, and I'm going to go grab my bread flour. I'm going to add 525 grams of bread flour. I'm using King Arthur's bread flour. No sifting required. Get to my 525 grams. I'm going to zero that scale out again. Definitely want to scale if you're going to be baking a lot of stuff. I'm going to add 350 grams of room temperature water. And then I'm just going to take my spoon and stir it all around. Nice and slow to start, but then I'm going to speed it up just like I'm going to speed this video up and get it going. Once I combine all the ingredients, it's going to form a sticky dough. And then I'm just going to let it sit. Once that dough is all thick, I'm going to put a lid on it. It's going to sit outside at room temperature. I'm also going to put a sticky note on it. I have not added salt, and I want to make sure I don't forget because I have forgotten in the past. Not adding the salt to your dough right away is referred to as autolyse. It works really good. Anyway, I measure my salt out, and I'm going to put it on a bowl. And in a few hours, I'm going to add it into the dough. Here you can see that the dough and the starter have combined, and now they're starting to bubble together. And so I put it on my KitchenAid, and I'm going to put it on using a dough hook for 3 or 4 minutes. I'm going to stretch it out. Also going to add my salt at this time. I add it slowly, trying to disperse it throughout the dough. And you can look at the dough and see that it's not sticking to the sides of the Mixmaster. That's a good sign. That's what you want to look for. I let the dough sit for 20 minutes in between these cycles. There's 3 cycles. If you were doing this by hand, it'd be called folding and stretching, but I'm taking the easy way out. I'm just going to let the machine do all the work for me. And each time it sits, it's going to get a little bit easier to work with. It'll come off that hook easier. Now I'm on my 3rd and final mixing. Once this is all done, then it's going to sit for 20 minutes. And you can see how clean that bowl is. And if you can catch it right when it comes off the hook, you can just see it just basically falls off the hook. It no longer just wants to stay on the hook. It just plops right off there. So that's a good thing. Now we're going to prep our banneton with some rice flour. Rice flour ensures that your dough will not stick to the basket. Take a couple of teaspoons, spread it around. I like to use my fingers and make sure it gets all the way to the top. You want to coat it really nice and well. I'm also going to take some cornmeal to this because I just like the way the cornmeal looks with the jalapeno and the cheddar. I think it gives it a good look. While we're also waiting, we're going to shred our cheddar cheese. We want 1.5 cups of shredded cheese and about 1 cup of jalapenos. I could dry mine off a little bit, make sure there's no extra liquid. And then I'm just going to add it to the dough after the 20 minutes is up. I'm just going to dump all the jalapenos in there. I'm going to dump 1.5 cups of cheese in there. And I'm just going to turn it on and let the hook do the mixing. It's going to be under the mixer for about 5 minutes as it distributes the jalapeno and the cheddar evenly. If you did this by hand, it's not going to get as even. It's going to be in certain spots of the dough. After you cut it open, you'll find it like in pockets. This way you can see it's all over the dough, no pockets. So that's a better method as far as I'm concerned. Bring my dough out. I'll put it on a cutting board with a little bit of flour on it, and I'm just going to grab it and pull it off of the board, adding a little bit of flour to make it less sticky. It becomes more sticky with the cheddar and the jalapeno with the extra moisture that I added to the dough. So this little bit of flour is going to help dry that out. Not going to stretch it or fold it or anything like that. I'm just trying to get that flour distributed on the loaf, get it into the shape of the basket that it's going to go in, and then I'm just going to put it into the basket. Once I like the shape, I place it in the basket, and then I'm going to refrigerate it or bulk ferment this dough in the refrigerator. Prior to going into the refrigerator though, I'm going to have to put a top on there, and I use a shower cap, I got off of Amazon, and I place it in the refrigerator, and it's going to stay in this refrigerator overnight, so I won't take it out until the next day. When I come back, I'll see that the fermentation has taken place. It's a slow process, but the loaf will have risen. And now that I see this taking place, I'm going to put it in the freezer. And I do this so I can score the loaf. While that's in the freezer, I'm going to start my oven up at 450 degrees with my Dutch oven in the oven. It's going to be in the oven for about an hour as it heats up. And as soon as it reaches temperature, I'm going to take my loaf out of the freezer so it's nice and cold. I'm going to throw a little bit of cornmeal on the bottom of it just to help it, keeps it from the bottom from burning. Cover that with my silicone bread sling. I'm using 2 of them. I like the way it works in the oven with 2 of them. Gives it a little bit more protection from the bottom heat. Sometimes sourdough will cook on the bottom a little bit too much. Now it's been in the freezer for an hour, so now I can take my loam and give it a cut. It's just basically a razor blade, and I'm going to go about 1/4 inch through this loaf down into it, 1/4 inch deep, maybe a little bit further. When you're doing with the jalapeno loaf, you're going to hit a couple jalapenos, so you're going to have to work your way through that. But you can see how far or how deep I was into that cut, and there's a good picture of it. So it's about 1/4 inch deep. Next, you want to take your Dutch oven out of the oven. It's going to be super hot. Have a place where you can sit it along with the lid. Make sure nothing burns. And then you want to grab your loaf and get ready to put it in the Dutch oven. Using 4 straps makes it easy as well. I just grab all 4 of them. I can pick this up with one hand if I wish. And then I just place it into the hot Dutch oven. If the straps fall into the oven, you just want to pick them up and make sure they go to the outside so your bread is free to grow as it bakes in the oven. And then you're just going to put your lid on it. Remember that the lid is hot, so grab it with a couple of hot pads, place it in the oven. You're going to close that, and you want it to bake for 25 minutes. We're going to bake this twice, once for 25 minutes with the lid on, and after 25 minutes we're going to take the lid off, and you're going to start seeing that the bread is risen quite a bit, spread open where you cut. And then we're going to close the oven up, and we're going to bake it for another 20 minutes, still at 450 degrees. Placement in the oven depends on your oven, so you might have to figure that out. Mine's on the lower or lowest setting, and there it is. Nice jalapeno cheddar loaf. Last thing we're going to do is make sure it's at 200 degrees. Mine's just reading a little bit right at 201 degrees. When I took it out. And now we're going to take it out of the cast iron. Right now, we don't want it sitting there because the bottom's still going to cook if you leave it in there. So take it out as soon as you can and put it on a rack. And that's it. No folding, no stretching, nothing really super hard about this. Just a few ingredients, but this is some good bread. I hope you give it a try. Hope you subscribe to my channel. Give me a like. Enjoy.